up. So, yesterday we talked about college planning and careers. If you were here yesterday, please let me know in the chat if you thought that was a valuable conversation, and hopefully you learned something from the conversation that we had yesterday. So, today we're going to carry on the second part of that discussion and talk about college funding. Now, for those who were here yesterday, they heard me tell a story about being in high school, sisters in college, wanting to go to Hampton and major in engineering, but I didn't have enough money to pay for it, and I ended up getting scholarships. I had a whole system. I talked about it, broke it down yesterday. Well, guess what? I talked yesterday about the first book that I wrote, trying to help students with college planning based on the things that I learned that I wish someone had told me just about how to get through the college admissions process. And then I'm back again, y'all, to talk about the second book. Now, I'll tell you, I wrote this first book in 2018, and I had families say to me, well, Miss Christie, we got accepted into school, but we didn't realize it was so high. So how are we going to pay for it? So that was the birth of my second book, which is College Funding Strategies I Wish Someone Had Told Me. And just like the first book I introduced yesterday, even this book has its own workbook of templates. So I'm just going to dive in because I want to make sure I use my time effectively. So in this book, you will find strategies, 10 strategies. I'm going to cover some of them today. Some of them. Oh, please make sure you mute your line, whoever's speaking. Thank you.
Next Sunday.
Next Sunday, mute your line. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to cover a few of these strategies today, but please listen carefully because there are some golden nuggets here also to help you. I think Mr. Jonathan Wright teed it up. He talked about debt. He talked about saving money, investing, some very important things. So that's a great segue into this conversation. The reason why I wrote this book is because there are 43 million people in the United States that owe over $1.7 trillion in student loan debt. So my vision for this book is to help students just like you go to college, but also graduate debt free. There are many ways to pay for college, and we're going to talk about some of those. And the ones that I love the most are the ones where you don't have to pay out of pocket, and you don't have to pay student loans back either. So please listen closely. As I talk today, not only am I going to share strategies from the book, but I'm going to give you guys some golden nuggets and some gems from the workbook. So if you see a workbook template reference, I have 10 templates in this book. Those are things that I've already created. You can find them on my website, and you don't have to reinvent them. I've already created them. You just need to use them. You focus on the content. I've already created the process and the documents. So we're going to take another little road trip. I know y'all tired of going on trips with me after yesterday, but we're going to go one more today, and it's a college funding road trip. We're going to talk about how do you assess your current situation. It kind of goes back to what Mr. Wright said about know where you're going and in order to be able to get there. So you got to begin with the end in mind here too. Know the cost of attendance. What does it cost to go to school? Customize your funding plan and approach. Do you even have one? Apply for financial aid. And then look and apply for scholarships. My favorite. I love talking about scholarships, y'all. But we're going to get started. So the first piece of the talk today is, do you know what your current situation is and where you're trying to go? I mean, if I'm going to carry Mr. Wright's theme forward. So if you're a student, do you know your GPA? I asked this question yesterday. If you don't, you should know your GPA after every semester, whether you're in high school or college. Number 2, what do you or your child plan to major in? I always we talked about it yesterday, but why is Miss Christie bringing up a major as we're talking about funding? Because it matters. In order to pick a school, you need to pick a major, or at least have an idea or a few ideas of what you want to major in. Because when you're researching colleges, you need to make sure those colleges have your major and have your program. Very important. And then what type of colleges are you considering? Private, or public schools? We talked about that yesterday. Private schools are a little bit more costly than public schools. Do you plan to stay on campus or off campus? What does it cost to go to college for a year? How many of you, let me know if you're in high school in the chat, and just give me a yes or no, parents and students, if you know which college you're thinking about, and do you know how much it's going to cost you to go there for a year? Just give me a yes or no, or whatever your situation is. Okay, I'm seeing a little mix of both. All right, so the ones who do know, fantastic. The ones who don't, stick around for this road trip, and you'll hopefully gain some insights. What is your parents' household income? Let me know, students, yes or no, if you know how much money your parents make. I know my sons can tell you how much I make. They're both in college, and they stay in my pocket, y'all. So I'm trying to get them through college so they can get out of my pockets. Most of y'all said no. Some of you said yes. If you don't know, that means you're living in a nice little bubble. You have no concept of bills or expenses going in and money going out, expenses going out, money for expenses going out, and then money coming in. I need y'all to wake up a little bit as you hit your senior year, junior and senior year of high school. Do you know how much your parents have saved for your college? It goes back to Mr. Wright's talk. Have you had conversations about how you're going to pay for college? That's probably the number one conversation or number one question on this list here. Have you had conversations? Let me know in the chat if you and your parents are talking about whether it's college, community college, vocational trade school, joining the military. Are you talking about those things? If you are not, please start today. And how much have you budgeted for your senior year expenses? Senior year can be a little expensive. As I told everybody yesterday, my son, my youngest son, he applied to 13 schools and we spent $980 alone just on application fees. So if you think that it's cheap or there's a negligible cost, meaning I'm going to stay in this bubble and not have to think about it, think again. We're going to uncover some of those things. So the first step is pay attention to where you are. If you don't know your GPA, you don't know how much your parents make, how much they've saved, where you want to go to school, I need you to start to think differently about your future based on the video we saw earlier. You've got your work cut out to do, and you're going to have to roll up your sleeves. So second on this road trip is to talk about the cost of attendance. Mr. Wright talked about inflation. College is not cheap, and inflation is only making it worse. So the cost of attendance is really just how much is college going to cost you? You have to think about how much it's going to cost when you're picking a college. Pick a major first, then you pick colleges second. As you're picking colleges, you need to be paying attention to the price tag on them. Why? Because if you put all 50,000, 80,000 a year per year schools on your list to apply for, and then you get to the end of your senior year and you can't afford any of them, what are your other alternatives? Don't put yourself in that situation. There's two different types of costs I want you to think about. There's money you pay directly to the university, and we call that direct cost, such as tuition, room and board if you're going to stay on campus, the housing and the food, that sort of thing. The other aspect of cost is your indirect cost. The books, the courses, any supplies you might need, computers, if you're doing laundry or cell phone bills, medical expenses, transportation even if you're out of state, especially if you're out of state. How are you going to get back home on Christmas break and Thanksgiving break when the campus shuts down? So please know that there are times of the year while you're at school, they want everybody off campus. So make sure you build that into how much it's going to cost you. Also, I talked about it increasing with inflation. There was a little bit of a relief during COVID when many students were at home and doing virtual learning because you didn't have the room and board to pay for. So that cut, in some cases, the cost down by like 50% when the room and board was factored in. Now, some colleges are more expensive than others. But my golden rule to you, please write this down. The golden rule of the day is go where you can afford. There are over 2,000 colleges and universities in the United States, as we talked about yesterday. And at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you can afford it. You're not stressing yourself out. It does not make for a positive college experience when you're stressed out, or your parents. more importantly. It's your education. So if anybody's going to be stressed, it should be the students and not the parents. But either case, nobody should have to be stressed. But if you look at this U.S. news chart, if you can see, if you're going to a public in-state school, which we talked about yesterday, if you live in Virginia and you're going to a public school in Virginia, it costs you $10,000. But let's say you don't live in Virginia, but you do want to go to school in Virginia, you're going to pay out-of-state tuition. You're going to double what it costs to go to school in some cases. And if you, like me and Mr. Wright and some others, I'm sure, who went to a private school like a Hampton University, private schools generally cost more. And as you can see, substantially more. So the value and understanding, and the reason why I asked the question, do you know what schools you're interested in? Because they have different price tags on them. Just like if you were going in a store, a shoe store, and you're looking at different styles of shoes. They have different price tags on them, and you need to be informed. Now, here's the other thing. Go and get out informed. Time is money. And the percentage of how much you pay for school increases the longer you stay in trying to get the same degree. What do I mean by that? If you decide you want to go to pick any school, let's just take those high private schools, for example, like Hampton University. And I tell my mom I'm going to go to Hampton and I'm going to major in electrical engineering like I did. And it was, let's say, a 4-year program. And then I changed my major. Or I failed too many classes and now I have to stay an extra semester or a whole academic year. Guess what? It's going to cost me more money to get the same degree. Don't let that be your reality. So please pay attention and take it serious when you're in college. Because the value of college is, or one of the key things about it is, you're paying for this out of pocket. This is not other people's money. It's your money, your parents' money, or those providers who may have invested in you for scholarships and other purposes. So please take it serious because I despise taking classes twice in general, just because I didn't want to see the coursework again. But I definitely didn't want to have to pay for it twice. And I hope that's your reality too. The third step along this road trip or this journey is have a plan. I told y'all yesterday, have a college admissions plan. You need to embrace a college funding plan and approach into that. And your plan should be able to answer the question, what am I going to do and what's my plan to pay for college? So if you don't have a plan, get one. Good news, in my books, both books actually, I have included, actually in the college funding book and in the template, there is a plan in here. It's a simple Excel spreadsheet that you can utilize. It has your goals listed, the type of item it is, how much that activity is going to cost you. SAT fees are real, all the college admissions, all those things cost money. Even the cost of tuition when you get to college and all the things you have to buy on your way to college. So have a plan. Put those things on your funding plan so that you're not surprised and your parents aren't surprised. Have a start and ending date and track your percentage of completion. How much progress are you making? Are you 100% done? I love getting to 100% on things. I feel like such a sense of accomplishment. But also, ask yourself, what else do I need to notate about this activity in the notes section? Your plan should be simple but effective. The best plan is a plan that you actually have written down. And like Winston Churchill says, those who fail to plan to fail. And that does not have to be your reality. So as you're thinking about customizing your funding plan, you should be thinking about what are the different ways that I can pay for college? Both you, your parents, guardians, other family members who might want to support you. You can pay out of pocket, which means you're going to go to the bank or you swipe your ATM or debit card and pay for it outright. Or as Mr. Wright talked about, that 529, you could have a savings plan. He also talked about permanent life insurance plans. But here's what I didn't hear him say. I didn't really pick up on him saying, parents, use your retirement plans to pay for your kids' education. Now, I personally do not recommend that unless that's like a last resort, because it's just that. Your parents have worked all those years. It's time for you to put in a little sweat equity, young people. Save their resources for retirement, and let's elevate you to be able to earn and support getting your own. But those are some key ways you can pay for college out. And I refer to those as household sources that you have direct control over what you do with those. The next category are outside sources, people, organizations, companies, entities, governments, all those folks. And that looks like financial aid, scholarships, which is free money, grants, which is free money. Well, Miss Christie, why do you call those free money? Because you don't have to pay them back. I love free money. Let me know in the chat if you're allergic to free money. Just type a yes if you're allergic to free money in the chat. So those are the things I want you to be thinking about. And if you work, my nephew, he's actually going to be on a panel later, but he worked at McDonald's and he received a pretty nice scholarship or employer benefit from McDonald's. Who would have thought, right? So all of y'all who don't want to work or don't ask the right questions on your jobs, think differently about that and start asking the question, hey, how do you support students with an education? And they will tell you. Either they do or they don't, and they'll tell you how. So, as we're still talking about those things, we're still developing that plan and trying to understand what are the ways we can pay for college. Let's use financial aid. Financial aid is a great way to get help with college, especially if you cannot afford to pay it all out of pocket. It is simply money to help you to pay for college. Who's the number one giver of financial aid in the United States? The federal government. They give out over $120 billion to over 13 million students every year. And that amount may have even gone up with inflation. But their financial aid could be work study, where a student works on campus, and then they offset some of their tuition and expenses by working. They can also give you grants. Well, they will give you funding that you don't have to pay back. That's free money. Or scholarships, which is another great way to get money. The government and even universities give out scholarships as a part of their financial aid packages too. And then there are student loans. I know Mr. Wright talked about those. I'm going to touch on them briefly too. My least favorite option is you not getting an education. I really do believe in the power of an education. It changes lives and it builds legacies. But if you have to take out a student loan, please let it be your last resort if possible. Because according to the U.S. Department of Education, there's a lot of folks in debt right now. And as you can see here, the average student has about $32,000 in student loan. This was in 2020 when I updated this slide. It's 2 years later. It's probably a little bit higher now, which doesn't help the cause. So if at all possible, you should be doing everything you can do from the time you hit high school to the time you graduate across your college stage to find money and to reduce down or eliminate the number of student loans you have. Now, I want y'all to know I listen, and one of the pieces of feedback I received yesterday in yesterday's survey evaluation was to talk about how much different careers and majors cost. How much money do they earn? Now, since we're talking about college funding and you're thinking about picking majors and picking schools, I thought it would be a great idea to share with you. And these are not Christie's tips. This comes from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. So please don't beat me up. But this is a great example of why you need to do research. Because I think you should follow your passion, do what you're great at as you're seeking professions and careers. But you should be informed about how much they cost, how much they make. On the left are the top 10 median salaries within the last 5 years of graduating. 5 years of graduation. Guess what's at the top? Oh my God, Miss Christie. Guess what's on the left, period? All of these are like STEM professions. What? Don't all this time I'm running from math and science and technology and all that sort of thing? They're making the money, y'all. Now, I'm not saying STEM is for everybody, but it's certainly something to consider. You got computer engineering folks making $74,000 right out of after graduating. Let's look at the counter side. The top 10 worst paying college salary. So the one at the top is one of the lower paying salaries, and the salaries go up as you go down that list. Family and consumer science, social science, performing arts. Now, there is a lot of value. Our society needs these professions. So please don't hear me saying that you should be discouraged. But please know that what I am saying is, please know what your earning potential will be when you're graduating with your undergraduate degree. And it all varies on the state you live in and the cost of living and some of those other factors. But do some research. Don't just pick a career field because it sounds cool. Make sure you know what your earning potential is as you consider majors and colleges. All right, so yeah, Ramona, the worst paying are all related to education and the arts. That's true. And I'll give you my 2 cents as I advance to the next slide. I think educators and those in our social scientists are the foundation and the cornerstone of our society. And it's very unfortunate that their pay and compensation doesn't reflect that. I'm an electrical engineer by background, so that was never a big challenge for me. But I used to send my kids to school and I would say, don't you go giving them teachers a hard time, because they're doing what a lot of people either don't or don't have the courage and don't want to do. And they're educating all of our children, future leaders. So very important professions, and we still need people in those professions. Just know, like Mr. Wright said, you might have to invest differently. You might have to have passive streams of income, like he said, to help compensate and equalize that out for you. All right, so I'm getting back on track, y'all. So step 4 along this journey is apply for financial aid. Can someone let me know in the chat from yesterday, what's the best time to apply for college? What time of the senior year is it the best time to apply to go to college? Come on, one of my scholars. Good. Okay, Lisa, Yasmin say the fall. Excellent. Fantastic. Here's why I share that. I want all the students who I get the privilege of spending time with like this to apply to college between September and November of their senior year. Well, why, Miss Christie? Because most colleges give out their money and financial aid on a first come, first served basis. So if you wait until March to apply, most of the good money is gone and you're going to be stuck like Chuck. So we are going to talk a little bit about submitting your FAFSA. Now, what you don't want to do is submit your FAFSA before October 1st, because they release it and they update their information every year on October 1st. Now, the FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. Now, it is required. Remember we talked about the federal government giving out the most financial aid money? Listen to me, and I don't care if you're on full scholarship, every year you want to fill out your FAFSA. If you want a penny of federal financial aid money, this is a requirement. They use it. They send out your information to all the colleges, and then each college calculates their own version of your financial aid eligibility based on that. It opens up every October, and guess what? It's free. It doesn't cost you a penny. So you and your parents want to sit down and think about what you want to spend. It only takes maybe about 30 minutes to an hour if you have all your documents together. I've done it for my sons every year, and guess what? I have a calendar alert on my phone, October 1st, to make sure, here it is, to make sure that I do it for the next academic year every October. Well, Miss Christie, you mean I don't just fill out the FAFSA one time as a high school senior? No, ma'am. No, sir. You fill it out every year that you are in college. Every year you will return to college. You must complete it. Yes, even if you have scholarships. So please don't let nobody tell you, all right now, Christy, you got a full scholarship. You ain't got to fill out no financial aid or the FAFSA. Yes, you do. Here's the link to fill it out here. When you sit down with your parents, have your tax documents and forms, your W-2s, your bank statements, all those things to fill it out. And make sure that you have a sign-in as a student, and your parents need a FSA ID to sign in and create an account too. Both the student and parents have to have accounts because you both have to sign some things. Now, here's why I said pick a major and pick a college. What do you see in red? add your colleges. When you sit down to fill out the FAFSA, they're going to say, okay, Christy, which schools are you planning to apply to that you want us to send these to? And every school you apply to, and even maybe a few more you're thinking about but you're not sure about, send them to them. Every school. So they can get it. Because the sooner the school gets it, the sooner they can start calculating your financial aid. If you wait until next year, don't expect to find out about your financial situation until you've done this step. I'm just going to be real, because I've had students apply early and say, well, I ain't get no money. You didn't fill out your financial aid application. So make sure you do that. Now, what will happen when you do? You will receive a report and it will calculate your expected family contribution. We call it an EFC, and they may be changing this terminology here in the near future. But the EFC is simply, now get this, it's not how much money they want to give you. The EFC is how much money they think you can pay. Yes, you. Not me, but you. They want to know how much you can pay out of your pocket. And they use it, they send it to the colleges, and then they will use it to determine how much they believe you should be paying. They'll look at your family, your parents' income. They'll look at the number of students in your household, the number of students in your home that's in college. Even if you're a student and you have substantial income, except work study, they don't look at your work study income. They will look at those things. They'll look at any assets your parents have. They'll look at the age of your oldest parent, and they'll also look at your assets. So if you own assets like stocks and that sort of thing, don't be concerned. Just know that it will factor into how much they think you can pay out of pocket. Now, I created this because it's very important to make sure we understand how that process works. In blue, and I wanted to do it in a visual because it just makes a lot of sense when you see it in blue. And you see it visually. In blue, you and your parents, you sit down and you complete the forms. It's going to kick out, once you're done and you hit submit, you're going to get that EFC. And guess what? All those schools you selected, they're going to get sent that information too. And in pink. And then after the colleges get it, in green over here, the college is going to, each college is different. Your numbers won't look the same on your financial aid awards from college to college. Every college will give you a different package. But they're going to calculate how much money or how much financial aid they think you're entitled to. Then they're going to send you an award letter. Now, students and parents, do me a favor. Check your mail. Pay attention to, when you're going through this process, you know how many students I've had who didn't check their acceptance letters when they came in and followed the instructions, hadn't filled out their financial aid forms, and they didn't look in the mail as their financial aid awards were coming. They could come by mail. They could come in your email. You have to check these things daily starting now. And also, they could come by you logging into your college or university's portal. So you have to be on the hunt. If you waiting too long and it hadn't come yet, and I'm going to just be passive about it, you're going to be paying out of pocket because you're not going to be able to respond like you need to. But once they send it to you, it will tell you if they're giving you loans, work study, grants, scholarships. And it will also tell you if you have to pay out of pocket. It could be a lot out of pocket, or it could be a little out of pocket, or nothing out of pocket. Very important. This is a very important step. Now, if you have all of your expenses covered, great. Fantastic. Your work is done. Praise God and get ready to prepare for college. If you don't, what if you have a shortfall and they say, all right, Miss Christie, we think you can pay $28,000. What? Me? I don't have that. They think you can pay it though. That's what may come up on your financial aid award letter. Then it's time for you to look for free money, my favorite. So the rest of this talk, I'm going to be talking briefly about free money. I'm going to skip this slide because it's kind of redundant. But I'm going to go, this is the heart of what I want to cover quickly. Even when you're looking for scholarships, have a plan. If you just wake up your senior year and decide, I'm going to apply for 2 scholarships and then I'm going to pout because I didn't get enough scholarships, that's unacceptable. You're doing yourself a disservice. I did a TikTok video recently because I had so many students, and all it said was, the writing just said, students be complaining that they didn't get scholarships, but they never applied for them. If you don't apply for a scholarship, please don't expect one. Don't put all your eggs in one basket thinking the university that you apply to is going to be your only source of scholarships. Sure, they give out merit scholarships, but they're not the only ones who have funding. So don't put all your eggs, I don't care how high your GPA is and how self-confident you are that your academic performance was stellar. Good job, it is, but don't let that be the only way you apply for scholarships, is through your university. Target different types, large dollar amounts, small dollar amounts. You would be surprised how that money adds up. And don't, for good reason, don't limit where you apply. In fact, my favorite scholarships are local community-based ones. Churches, fraternities, sororities, local organizations, nonprofits. Right there in your local communities. You know why? And this is a gem, so please pay attention. Most students don't apply for them. What? But they're local. They don't look for them and they don't apply. So if you apply for a scholarship and not many people apply, what does that mean? It means you have a higher chance of getting awarded that scholarship. So I don't want you to just apply for the national ones, apply for local ones and some of the others you see listed here. Find you a scholarship mentor. Let's say you want to apply for the Bill and Melinda Gates Scholarship. Well, reach out, look at their website and find someone on that website who's been a recipient before. And then reach out to them and find out what it is they did to get it. Don't run from essays. Very important tip, y'all. During COVID, when SAT and ACT tests were test optional, people were giving out scholarships and they weren't expecting test scores back. What do you think they emphasized as they evaluated scholarships? They looked at your writing. They looked at your letters of recommendation. You have direct control over your essay writing. And when you have 3 or 10 people with 4.0s, what's going to be the differentiator? Or 3.0? How do you differentiate? You're going to look at who put the most time and effort into their essays and is demonstrated. And y'all, please follow directions. Please follow directions. There's different type of scholarships because I know I'm running out of time. There are need-based, financial need-based scholarships. There are merit-based, which are academic scholarships. Interest-based, military, and athletic. And those are just to name a few. Here's what I want you to do, and this is important too. I had an individual call me up yesterday. My phone number is in both of my books. I had a student, never met her before, call me up. I answered the phone, and she's like, oh my God, you actually answered. Yes, I do answer my phone. So she goes to say she didn't have enough money for school, and she was struggling trying to figure out how to find scholarships. Her grades weren't the highest, and so she didn't think she would be able to find scholarships. I said, on the contrary, the myth is you have to have a high GPA or high test scores to get scholarships. Completely a myth. You can get scholarships for all kind of things. I listened to her tell me that her father lost his job, that she was a first-generation student going to college. Her parents never went to school, that she had a learning disability, ADHD, and she was struggling with some things and needed extra support. By the time I finished listening to her just talk about all the things that she thought were problems for her, I said, do you know they have first-generation scholarships? They have scholarships for students who have low-income situations or parents lost their jobs. And they have scholarships with students with learning disabilities, ADHD, and more. She's like, are you serious? And she went on her way using what she thought were hindrances about her to help her situation. So I tell you that to say, look for scholarships in some very unconventional ways. There's so many different types of scholarships. But what I want to stress to y'all is, please don't say, well, Miss Christie, I don't know where to find those scholarships. Because I'm going to say, did you Google it? Because if you go Google scholarships for ADHD students, a bunch of things pop up. So my question, and I'm going to challenge y'all, where have you looked? So if you're not looking, you're not finding. You should be looking everywhere. So where else can you look? Check with your high school counseling offices. They have a whole wealth of scholarships. The local ones I've been talking about too. They get those all the time. Also, there's a lot of online portals where you can get scholarships, and you can certainly sign up for accounts and they have a lot of entities and providers populate their scholarships there, and you can search and filter out the ones that apply to you. Also, companies and organizations have scholarships. As you are collecting scholarships, when should you start looking for scholarships? Right now. And as someone put in the chat, it's never too early. If you are a freshman or a sophomore, student or parent, you probably say, we got time, we don't need to look now. On the contrary, start looking. Here's what you do. When you find one that you like, put it on this spreadsheet. And also add in here the link. So copy the URL and paste it and save it. So what happens when you come back and you're a junior? You go back to that same URL, they have an updated scholarship, and you can apply. And someone in the chat said, don't forget about sorority and fraternities in your area. Excellent point. They all have scholarships, different chapters in different local areas. So Google them as well. But when you start collecting those scholarships, put them on your tracking sheet. I did this with my sons. This is a template as well out of my workbook. And they filled in the name of the entity, the URL, what the eligibility requirements, how much money they were offering, what's the deadline, and so on. And then I had them do this important step. Reorganize them based on the deadline that was coming up first. So we didn't get overwhelmed with our scholarship search. Why? Because we took it month by month. So in February, I sat down with my son and I said, hey, look, let's look at this list and see which ones have a deadline in March. Those are the ones we knocked out. Which ones have a deadline coming up the next month. Then we knocked them out on a month by month basis before their deadlines. So great way to approach it so that you don't get overwhelmed. The scholarship application is very similar to a college application. You have to have your scores. Some of them, sometimes they ask for your test scores, transcripts. They may ask you to verify that you're actually been accepted to a college or you're still enrolled in a school. They may ask for essays or letters of recommendation. And also, yesterday we talked about the scholar profile, the one-page resume, based on the template you guys put together last night. This might be a great opportunity to share that too. Now, I do want to remember, we're not going to talk a lot about essays and letters of recommendation, but I want to caution you that yesterday we talked about there's two types of essays you'll write, one for college admissions and one for scholarships. So I want to draw your attention to the scholarship essays and letters of recommendation here. They answer the question, why should you be awarded a scholarship? It's different from why should you be admitted to that college or university. So very important. So think about that. And same for letters of recommendation. For every scholarship, please create a checklist, y'all. The worst thing you can do is submit packages and not have everything they asked you for. Every entity will ask you for different things, so you need a specific checklist for that entity. Now, here's a gem. I have released earlier this year a free ebook. It's called 10 Secret Scholarship Strategies that every student needs to know to get a college education without going broke. It's online only. The link is below, but also the QR code. I'll leave it up for a second as I bring my talk to an end. And what I will tell you is, in conclusion, there is so much money that goes unclaimed every year in scholarships because students don't want to spend the time filling out, writing those essays and completing the applications and looking for them. If you don't put any work in, don't expect to get the money out, y'all. It's that simple. Put together a winning system and a plan that works specifically for your situation and make it happen. Also, track your progress. And again, make sure that you sit down with your parents and talk about your plans for how you're going to pay for college and look for scholarships. Now, the last thing I'm going to say as I wrap up, and please don't hesitate to join my Scholarship for Scholars group. I place exclusive information on scholarships that I hear about, some of those local gems that I know a lot of students aren't going to apply for. If I put in either one of those groups, I highly encourage you, or I put things in all caps, you better be applying for them because I know something that I can't tell you. So join me on Facebook or Instagram. And lastly, I want to remind you that if you are looking for scholarships, they are out there. If you get to your freshman year and you don't have enough funding and you and your parents have to take out a little bit of student loans or pay out of pocket, don't be discouraged. I tell students, you don't stop applying for scholarships until you graduate from college. So every year while you are in school, you can apply for scholarships. Keep looking until you graduate. If you are interested in my books or resources, please go to my educationalexcellenceinc.com/shop, and you can get access to the resources that I have in those templates. I do have those electronically, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel.